What is going on, guys? My name is Demetri, and welcome to the Rise Productive Podcast. In today's episode, we have someone who's from a different part of the world that I'm not sure if many people are from. I think they got like 2 million total people. It's going to be really fun to talk to a fellow productivity enthusiast and YouTuber, Sam Cruz. What's going on, Sam?
Hey, how's it going? Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Yes. I'm really excited to get into this because we have a very similar excitement for filmmaking. That whole niche that's going on with the Matt Devells of the world, the Nathaniel Drews of the world. And before I get into everything, make sure you guys go and check out Sam's YouTube channel. The links to all of his stuff will be in the description box down below on YouTube and the podcast notes down below for all the other platforms. So to get us started, please, no problem, man. To get us started, please tell us a little bit about where you're from, your life, and all that sort of stuff.
Well, I'm from a very remote place in the Canary Islands. It's from Spain, but we live right next to Africa. So people would think we're African, but ages ago the Spanish colonies came over here and just snatched it up, and now I'm here. So yeah, it's an amazing place because all people from all around the world come here to live their life because it's so beautiful place. Like the sun is it's very hot around here. The beaches are amazing, and there's a lot of Russians, French, Italian. So we've got a very good mix around here. Very good.
When you say it's hot there, this is a question I always like to ask people because I've been to countries where, specifically Italy. It gets hot in the summer, but they don't have air conditioning. I don't know. It's a cultural thing? You guys got air conditioning in Canada?
Well, yeah, I've got one here, but it is a cultural thing, really. We just live with it. It's around 90? Today's going to be 90 Fahrenheit, so that's around, I think, 32 Celsius.
Jeez,
so it's going to get pretty hot today. Yeah, it's not looking good.
So you have it in your house, but it's not normal in the Canadian.
No, not really. No, because I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of weird, isn't it? Like we don't have air conditioning. It's normally just fans, the typical fans going about. And that's it. Really.
Weird, man. I mean, I remember when I was in Italy during the summer, I was honestly I was not happy about it. Like it would get really hot some days, even actually most of the time. It was the summer, so it would get really hot most days, and I don't know what it is. I mean, in the U.S., most people have air conditioning. I actually just went out to an apartment that I'm renting for the year, and it doesn't have air conditioning in it in the city, and I ended up getting a unit to put in the window because it's going to be 90 sometimes, and I'm just like, I don't think I'm going to live through this, especially sleeping wise.
Yeah, but maybe it's because it's always hot around here, so we just get used to it. Maybe it's
all year it's hot.
Yeah, it's always like people come over here in winter just to have a nice day on the beach. Really, it's always that hot.
Yeah,
so it's not a big deal.
I guess that's true for the Chicago area that I'm from, and then a lot of the U.S. honestly, that's not south of Illinois and the Midwest. It's like, I don't know. During the winter, I'm trying to think in Celsius. I think it's like 0 Fahrenheit for most of the winter, which is like, I don't know, negative 15 Celsius. I actually don't know.
Wow.
I feel like that's probably accurate. Yeah, no, it's so cold all the time. Wow. Snowing all the time. Yeah.
Well, we do have mountains up here. Like we've got the largest volcano in Spain, so that gets quite cold during the winter. It gets to around it could get minus 5 Celsius. So I'm not sure how much that is in Fahrenheit. But it gets quite cold. Yeah, and it starts snowing, and people go up there to I don't know what it's called. You just get like a bin bag and you just go down. I don't know what it's called.
Sledding?
Well, people just DIY it. They make their own, sledges. Yeah, sledges.
Yeah, slides, yeah.
And they go down the volcano up there. It's quite impressive.
That sounds insane. Well, maybe I'll make my way out there if I can ever afford a trip like that to go to. Hey, so I'm confused because you said in Spain. Is it technically part of Spain? It's just like an island.
Yeah.
So it's owned by Spain. Okay.
Basically, we are 7 islands. So that's why they call it the Canary Islands. There's the biggest one is Tenerife right now, and with the most population. The other one is Gran Canaria, which is the second largest. And the other one's Fuerteventura, Lanzarote, El Hierro. I'm saying all this in Spanish. If you're not understanding, it's no problem. But yeah, like if you want to travel to Tenerife, you're going to have to visit the other islands because they're all different. Like one's more volcanic than the other. Fuerteventura's got it's like a desert because it's got full of sand dunes from the Sahara Desert. Like the wind blows all the sand over, so it's incredible 7 islands.
That's so cool. I feel like have you heard of how the United States has Hawaii, and that's kind of like a separate thing? They have 5 different islands in Hawaii. Have you heard of Hawaii before?
I've heard of Hawaii, but I didn't know the separate islands of, well, typical films, Hawaii and this and that, but I'm not very familiar with it.
5 or 6, but I've been to specifically one. So yeah, like they have such a vast and different landscape. Actually, I've been to 2. Sorry, I've been to 2 out of the 6 or 5. I'm forgetting. But yeah, it's so cool to see how those different ones. And it's funny how you were like, this one's the biggest right now. That's exactly how it works in Hawaii. Like it goes through a cycle. The biggest one will then get smaller, and the smaller one will like submerge, and then eventually a big one will form. But I'm curious how that's going to happen in modern times. Like
that's scary. That because they're talking about the sea level raising, and I'm quite scared for the Fuerteventura and Lanzarote Islands because they're the lowest ones. So when that goes up, they're going to lose quite a lot of meters on that.
That's going to be weird.
Yeah. Huh. It's insane.
All right, man. So you started making videos on YouTube recently, but before that, you ended up having a passion based on some things that you saw on YouTube, and I think people would definitely want to hear how you got into filmmaking.
Well, yeah. This was very recent when we talked about all this before a week ago, and my mate, he got a DSLR camera, and I was like, okay, yeah, you're going to take some photos and that. But once I picked it up and started taking photos, it was very interesting how looking through that viewfinder could take an image. It's very incredible. So I started to like discover more about filmmaking, and then I picked up this camera that I got right here, the Sony 6300, and I completely fell in love with it. So since then, I've been on YouTube looking at Matt Divella's content and Nathaniel Drew's content, and it's been very interesting how they use their words to connect like their video and storytelling and like delivering it to us. It's very fascinating. So that's why I've started making my YouTube videos, trying to inspire people like you do with your productivity. And as well, it's quite funny how I got into all of this because it's one single reason, and it's from Nathaniel's video on, I think it was one of his meditation videos, I'm not sure, but that really inspired me how one little moment can change everything. It's very impactful.
Yeah, I think I had the exact same moment when I watched the first video by Matt Divella, the A Day in the Life of a Minimalist video, the one that went viral.
5 million views, something like that.
Yeah, I think it's 15 now. No, but like the year it came out, it was 5. But
wow.
Yeah, I think it's at 15.
Wow.
It's actually insane.
Incredible.
I'm sure that still gets suggested to a lot of people on YouTube. But the way that it was going in 2018 or 19, probably.
I'm not sure.
I'm forgetting. I think 2019, like spring or winter, when that came out, there was like this huge amount of suggested videos of his that were being pushed, but the main one was that. And I'm like, well, YouTube, the algorithm, you did a good job because people like him a lot for a reason. I don't. And what's crazy about it is he's got such a storytelling ability, even though he doesn't really have a background in storytelling besides like making films. I don't know what I mean. What I'm saying by that is him as a person, He's not somebody who's like
in front of the camera.
Yeah, and he's really good at that. I think it was a lot of learning how to do it through. He made like 100 podcast episodes before he actually started making videos.
So I bet he's learned a lot expressing what he's feeling, his idea. So I bet with all those podcasts, and he's met a lot of famous people as well. So, connecting and negotiating, it's really helped his YouTube career out.
Yeah, he met a lot of people that were really successful in their own fields, and that probably gave him a lot of good advice. If you go and watch through all of those old The Ground Up Show episodes, there's a lot of really good advice to be found there. The first couple is kind of funny. He's talking to himself, and I think in the first one he says something like, "This could be the worst thing ever, but I'm trying it anyway." But it's just like, yeah, you were wrong. It's pretty good. Ended up being
when you start out, it's always something weird, like you're not supposed to do it. But when you start doing it, like you get a feeling that it's going to lead up to something. I think you felt that with your podcast, like getting a lot of people on.
Yeah, totally. The first 2 episodes I was talking to myself, and then I just reached out to somebody, Keaton Walker, who's doing really well on YouTube right now. But I reached out to him because I saw some of his videos, and I was like, well, maybe this will work, maybe this won't. Maybe I know how to interview people, maybe I won't. And it ends up being that with more practice, I think I'm ending up to be okay at interviewing people, or at least decent. Some people say I'm good, and I'm like, well.
You're good.
Thanks. The opinion of people, I'm not going to downplay your opinion. I'm just trying to not be braggish. But the thing is with him, like he had put in so many videos upon videos upon videos of him recording the people. He had a really good podcast setup. He'd have like these 3 cameras, I think. He'd have like an angle of himself, an angle of them, 3. And then an angle
and then
of
both, I think.
Yeah, and that was good to get probably practice of multiple shots and editing like people, because I know he was the filmmaker for the Minimalism movie, which is awesome. And it's funny because that had been so recommended to me on Netflix, and I didn't even know it was made by him, because by the time I started watching him on YouTube, he kind of stopped mentioning that he was the filmmaker.
At the start of his videos.
He would say that every single time, apparently in old videos, and then the past like year he's not saying it anymore because he's
more famous on YouTube than on the Netflix series.
Yeah, which is funny because the minimalists in their own right are pretty popular. I know they have the podcast. My favorite thing about their podcast is the start when they go like, "It's sponsored by nobody because sponsors suck," or something, or ads suck. One of those 2 things. It's hilarious. Those two guys have it figured out. Actually, a bit of a spoiler alert for people. I'm gonna make a video. I pulled him at Diavella regarding my wardrobe. I went.
That sounds good.
Yeah, right. I got a bunch of charcoal gray shirts and black shirts.
Nice.
I was like going through my closet, and I was getting really irritated. I don't know if you've ever had this situation where like laundry's towards the end of the cycle. You don't have all your clothes, and you're like, all right, these pants don't match with this shirt. This is a waste of a pairing. I can't match it. And I was struggling to do that, like to pack for a couple days of like going away to the apartment for the weekend. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I can't pack for like 2 days because laundry's like, I'd gone through half my clothes. That's ridiculous. Like
some are older than the others and you don't know which to put with what, like that. Yeah, I've been going through that. And now with the, that word, with what's happening, it's been happening quite a lot. I've been wearing the same clothes like 3 days because they're the only ones that match really, and the comfiest.
Exactly. It's like this whole quarantine has helped me realize more and more how much, I've always been one to not like clothes regarding like matching and stuff. I'm like very severely colorblind, so I'm the kind of guy who would walk into a room and be wearing a maroon, or like I'd be wearing 2 of the same thing. Like one time I wore red on red in high school and I didn't know, and my mom didn't see me walking out the door probably, and was like, and everyone was like, huh, what are you wearing? I'm like, what do you mean? And I was like, it's a black shirt and like, or it's a red shirt and black pants. What's wrong with that? They're like,
Well, I didn't know you was colorblind.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, not the greatest thing, right?
What is it like? What do you when you said red on red? What was your first thought on those two colors? Or
Well, my issue is the way that lighting hits red or black objects. If there's not enough light on a red object, I'll think it's black. Yeah, if I can't see, I think it was dark in my room or something when I grabbed it. And then
so you was trying to match black with red or something like that.
And then it was just red on red. So that's happened to me many times. So I've decided I think I'm cutting out red from my wardrobe, that's for sure, or maroon or anything similar. There was a time when I found out I was colorblind. It was actually really weird. I was at my grandmother's house and I was looking at the TV, and the TV, which was black, from far away was just glowing red, and I was freaking out. I was like, "What?"
What, the outside or
the whole
screen?
thing was glowing as if it was red. The entirety of the object, and anything that was black was doing that, and I'm like, "We got a problem." I was telling my parents like, "I'm seeing things, and I don't get what I'm seeing." Maybe I don't know why. I think I'd always been colorblind, right? But that was like the moment where I realized that there was like an issue. That I don't really have that problem too much anymore, but there are some times when I'm far away from black objects that they just glow red, which is I don't know what that is.
You get used to it, so
yeah. So
you learn to work around it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go through my wardrobe later. I'll probably make a video on it, which will be entertaining. Just like I don't know whether to talk about Matt D'Avella in it or in the title, because I'm gonna talk about him. There's no way around it.
Of course, you can't mention him.
Yeah, I cannot mention
mention it. He's amazing.
Yeah, there's a video I'm gonna make too. I'm not sure. I gotta figure out the date for this. This is episode 13, episode 12. I think it'll already have come out. If it doesn't, I'm gonna pause for half a second and then cut this part out. So I'm going to make a video about my 5 out of 7 rule. It's like this thing. You know how Matt D'Avella has this 2-day rule?
What do you mean?
He has the 2-day rule.
Like for the planning.
For him, he does that thing where you can't take a day off more than once in a row. Is 2-day rule?
I haven't seen that.
Oh, no. Yeah. It's just like really. He made a video on it, but he brings it up all the time. The reason he's got such big biceps, he claims, is because he hasn't taken more than a day off in a row off something with his 2-day rule in a long time. And that's like how he ended up getting his gym routine to be so consistent. And that's why he's in shape. And I have like a rule that came to mind after I was exposed to the concept of his rule. I realized I had been making one for myself for a long time. I call it the 5 out of 7 rule. Essentially, if you have a habit you're trying to build or something, you have to do it 5 days a week, because I think the 2-day rule is good, don't get me wrong, but there could be 2 days in a row where you can't do something, like if you go away for a weekend. So I don't know. And work week is 5 days a week. And I found myself, anytime I'd give an answer to a question, like a doctor would be like, Demetri, how often have you been taking your prescription, or have you been using the certain ointment on your face for acne or whatever? I'd be like, 5 days. And then like that was the answer for everything. And I was like, is this subconscious? So
I saw something about that with the habits. Something like, if you can do something for 21 days, that will become your daily habit. Like if you can't do that, it won't stick. I think I read it in, was it Atomic Habits or something like that?
Yeah, by
I'm not
James
sure.
Clear.
Yeah, that one. So basically, imagine you would go to the gym for, it's perfectly what you just said with the 5-7, because 31 days or 30 days in a month. If you go to the gym 21 days out of those 30 days, you'll become more disciplined in that role. So what you're saying, I think, is quite interesting about the 5-7.
Yeah, I think for me, it was like, it's determining that habits you want to build. Most of the time, just to be honest, most of the time they're not things that are, they're not pleasureful. I don't know. I'm trying to think what the word is. Like, you're not happy doing things like that you're trying to build habits with. Now, I'm not saying that you aren't happy with the going to the gym and the physical rewards that you gain from it. But like for most people, going to the gym in their head, it's not a happy thing, right? So me and sitting on the couch and playing video games, that's something that's not a habit. That's not like what I describe as a habit. Me consistently keeping up a skincare routine, something like that, that's a habit. Because for me, I'm like, whatever. Now that I'm on video, I kind of care more about my skincare routine. But beforehand, I was very like, I don't care. Like I could care less. And then I ended up doing, like I'm going to do it every day, and then it stuck. But before that, and even now, the way I track my habits in Notion is I have a little reflection of the week, and I like tick boxes for each habit task every day. And if I complete, because I have like 6 things, it's like taking my supplements 2 different times a day, washing my face, eating fruits, eating vegetables, and wearing my retainer. And that's 6 options per day. So if I get 30 in the week, that means I did good, because 5 times 6 is 30. And why did I bring up the 5-7 rule? It's because of Matt Diavella. That's why. But
the wardrobe.
Yeah, the wardrobe thing. But the 5-7 rule, it's interesting that he's had this rule in his life that I think he's got this whole minimalism thing down, and he's got this whole self improvement thing down. And whenever you're going into making these types of videos, I'm trying to like find that balance between, I don't want to come at it as a figure of authority. Like he has this really perfect spot he's in where he's telling people his experience.
And he doesn't have to do anything else. He doesn't have to change. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, how have you been finding making videos? I know you've made like what, 5?
Yeah, 4 or 5, and some that are gonna come out.
So maybe when this is out, like 5 or 6, because this is gonna come out in like 2 weeks. You've been making them, and you've been trying to learn how to do storytelling, and you've been doing a really good job. Do you find when you're making these videos, it's kind of hard to not come at it from a like, you should do this perspective?
Yeah, it's quite hard. That's why I try and put some, in my opinion, this is my way of doing the things. That's why I use those type of like phrases, just to tell the viewer that you don't have to do it, but you're welcome to. Like, it's quite, what you're saying is quite difficult, because you want to tell them to stop doing these things or to do these things, but you don't want to, make them, I don't know how to put the words, but I don't want to force them down that lane. I just want them I want to guide them to there. That's my idea.
I agree with that. I remember when I wrote my ebook, it was very like telling them what to do rather than guiding them. And that may not have been the way to go. But then after I wrote that, and then I started writing scripts, I found the same sort of verbiage coming out in my scripts. And then I realized when that why everything needs to change video, I was like, the way Matt goes about it, the way Nathaniel goes about it, the way Ali Abdal goes about it, Thomas Frank even, they're just saying, hey, look at this. This is pretty cool. My life's a little bit better now. So I'm trying to do that with my filmmaking and with my storytelling. I think it's hard because in my previous videos I made on my old channel, I was not storytelling. I was just like making vlogs and joking around. And it's interesting learning how to do storytelling in general. I come from a marketing background, which probably helps a little bit. Like I use creative words fairly well. Like I can articulate pretty well. And I don't know about you, but there's something to be said about every time I watch like a Matt Diavella video or a Nathaniel Drew video, I'm just looking at my own and I'm thinking to myself, man, I got to step my B-roll game up. I got to step my everything game up.
Yeah, my words, the way I join up phrases, everything. Yeah. The sound design. Yeah, it takes the pleasure out sometimes when you're a filmmaker or a YouTuber and you're looking at other people's work. It's like, man, I can't be watching the video and enjoying it, but I'm actually watching what they're doing in the background. You know what I mean?
I study Matt Diavella and Nathaniel Drew videos like film now. Like a sports player with
Yeah,
film. Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy because I used to really like the newest videos now. I'm starting to enjoy more because I'm doing it my own way. Like I'm trying to find my own path of storytelling. So it makes it a lot more easier than studying them and trying to produce what they're doing. But getting a few little tips and tricks out of their videos has really helped what I've been doing, and I bet what you've been doing as well.
Yeah, I think there's this interesting concept that I learned. We were actually talking about filmmaking last week a little bit, like frames per second and stuff, which was cool. I'm trying to shoot in 24 frames per second, but as we talked about, like, I don't think the camera app on my phone's looking good. It's got this weird choppy thing. I'm like, come on, man. This is basically a camera. I've been actually, before I get into the whole filmmaking thing again, I've been debating on just upgrading my iPhone every year. If you think about it this way, I don't know how much a nice DSLR costs, but I have the iPhone 11. And the way that they're talking about the 12 coming out, there's apparently going to be some like sort of 3D enhancing third sensor on it or something that's going to up the level of video again. And I'm just the
depth of field, do you mean? Like
they're actually going to make it possible to shoot 3D video on an iPhone, supposedly. So I don't know if that sensor will help depth of field. That's my theory. I don't know if you think that'll probably help, but
I think it would.
So my theory is this. I'd say by the iPhone 14 or 15, it's going to basically be just as good as, I don't know, like probably you have a 63,000, Sony A6300, sorry.
Yeah.
It shoots in 4K and that's kind of stuff. I'm thinking in like 3 or 4 years, iPhones will be able to have similar depth of field to like a $500, $600 camera that can shoot in 4K now. And it's so much more portable and light. I can have all the storage on there. I can just get a version with a lot of storage. And then I could just use it as my daily driver. I could not have to deal with like all the camera gear. I don't know. It's my theory. Like if it gets to be good enough soon, maybe I'll test that out. If not, I'll probably end up buying a DSLR.
It's because the thing is, when you have a dedicated camera, it's all focused on that. So they're not focusing on the software or the hardware. They're focusing on every single little thing on the camera. Like the sensor size is so important because I don't know how big this sensor is, but it's quite big.
Yeah.
So compared to an iPhone, that's why the depth of field is always different.
Yeah.
And they have to artificially do that in the software on the iPhone is incredible. It's inclusive better than the Sony's, in my opinion. Like the color is amazing on the iPhone. But that's the thing. Like if you make something to do a certain task, it's going to be 100% focused on that. But an iPhone is of course a phone, a camera, video recorder, maybe a speaker. It has to have all these things, but my camera has the worst speakers you could ever listen to in the world because they're awful. But the main task that it does is record and take photos, and that's the important thing about it. That's why in the future I think, of course the iPhone 20 or whatever is going to be amazing, but imagine the cameras then. I bet they're going to be smaller and even more powerful.
Yeah, but if they get to the more compact area, it's probably going to be an easier switch for me.
Yeah. Well, but maybe this one cost me around €700, so it would be around $800. So it was about $300 less than it was. So I think that's quite a good investment in the end. Because when I'm going to go out, I don't take my phone, less distractions, take my camera, record bits and pieces of B-roll, a bit of photos, and I actually enjoy it more than taking photos with my phone.
That's fair. I guess that's an aspect that I'd have to think about too, with the whole less distractions, enjoying the recording process more. I'll definitely have to like test out using a DSLR in some form or another, because once I do it, I'll probably give me a different perspective on that story.
Yeah, I would recommend you a mirrorless camera because the whole market's shifting towards that. So it's a good idea to invest in a few things on that.
That's what I've heard. I don't know exactly what the difference between a mirrorless and a DSLR is, but I do know that we keep using the same word DSLR, even though things like the Canon M50 and stuff are not technically DSLRs. They are mirrorless cameras.
Yeah, people still use that. And the difference is when you look through the viewfinder on the DSLR camera, it's what you actually, it's live. So there's a mirror bouncing off the light and it's coming right towards your eye. But on a mirrorless, there's no mirror. That's why they call it mirrorless. So you're actually looking through a screen that's looking through the sensor. So that's what's going on. And people, I don't know, people enjoy more DSLR because it's real. Like, it's what you're looking at right now.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool.
Preferences.
I guess we'll have to see which way that ends up going in the future, if mirrorless is just a trend for now or not. But going back into the filmmaking process and stuff like that, I learned something pretty interesting from one of Matt D'Avella's videos. I noticed he's got these just wicked intros. I mean, these intros just come in and they smack you in the face. And then you got like 30, 40 seconds of pure engagement. And there's like a little funny bit in there. And then it all comes to a screeching halt. And then he talks in front of the camera. And the second I started doing that, people are like, oh my God, I love these intros. Oh, and then my watch time goes up like 40
The watch
seconds.
time, it goes up.
Oh, well, I guess I'm doing that now. And learning stuff like that from him, even just from a fan's perspective, is so cool. Beforehand, I would make relatively okay intros, but I didn't do this thing, which I thought was interesting. I didn't make my audio change in decibel volume for my background music.
You mean the sound, the music?
Yeah, I would make the sound and the decibel level of the music pretty much the same the whole time. Very rookie mistake, apparently, because there's such a dynamic feeling to kicking it in the beginning and then having it mildly taper off and then come to a screeching, like, no background music.
Yeah.
And then bringing it back in really strong with another, not a second intro per se, but a second bringing in all the ideas of the video and doing more B-roll and that kind of stuff. And there's just something to be said about learning about the different dynamic things you can do with video just by watching great YouTubers and great filmmakers. And for me, like, he's just got this aura in front of the camera and during the voiceovers even, that it's just so inspiring. Every single time I watch video, I'm just like, man, if I'm half that, if I get to half of that point, I'll be happy.
Yeah. What I've noticed is when he's recording his videos, like when the intro part is going, like, he's speaking closer to the mic. I don't know if you've noticed that. Like, I don't know, it's kind of weird. He's a lot closer, he feels more connected. I think, like, that plays an important role as well to the watch time, like getting you in the video, getting you to watch more. It's quite kind of interesting.
Yeah, I've noticed that's the reason I'm like all up like this when I do my B-roll recordings. And I think it helps a lot because people make so many comments. It's like, dang, look at that crisp audio. Or they'll say things like, your voice sounds really good at this part or something like that. And a lot of the times when you just get close to a nice studio microphone, it just sounds great. And I'm not sure what the thing is there. It'd be interesting to see whether, because some YouTubers do different things regarding their audio, right? For me, my B-roll just is a voiceover. I talk over this, and then my A-roll, I just record the shots. But some people record A-roll with the whole script, and then they just put the videos over it. Have you noticed that?
What do you, they're just talking, and then they put the video over. Mm-hmm. I understand. Yeah.
That's probably the difference. I think he might be doing like one of these.
At the start, and I've seen in between sometimes when he gets really in depth to the B-roll, he gets close to the mic.
Like, that's got to be it.
Yeah.
Because he uses a shotgun mic, I think, for his sit-downs.
He might be using his podcast one because it's quite...
Yeah, I'm sorry, I mean during the A-roll, he's got a shotgun mic going.
Yeah.
So I find it very hard to believe he's going to stand up, and be like, hey, what's up, B-roll? Like, no, that ain't happening. No, I can see the Shure, because he's got the Shure M7, whatever it is, the very popular one. That sounds like...
Mic quality is so important. Like, if you're listening to someone and it's crap, you even if he's saying something very important, you're not going to listen to him. It doesn't matter.
Totally agree there. And this is a reason why I've like put such an emphasis on quality for the podcast, or at least trying to ask the guests to, in any way they can, give me an audio that's better than the Zoom recording, just in case. Because like I ask people, like Sam right now is recording on his DSLR, and he's got, what else do you got for your audio as a backup?
I've got the camera with a normal microphone that I got on the internet. But it's quite a good one.
Exactly. So it's one of those things where it'll probably come out a lot better than just a Zoom call. And I'm trying to like make one aspect or the other at least decent if something doesn't work out and I have to use the Zoom call. But a big thing for people that they don't understand is like noise floors. I don't know why I get audio more than maybe the average person, but like there's these little things I notice in people's audio, right? Because people have said things like, okay, your audio sounds really good. There's no background noise. Like people don't know what noise gates are. They don't know what like proper noise reduction is in the background. Mm-hmm. And they don't know
the hissing, all these little things.
And they don't know that if you don't time it sometimes with just the natural sounds that are in your area, that your videos are just going to suffer from it. Like, for example, the gain is really low on my mic right now. And that's okay because I'm talking so close to it. There's a furnace going right now. If I wasn't talking this close to the microphone and I was talking here the whole time, you would hear the furnace. Or if I noise suppressioned it out, you would hear this very not great sounding audio. But since I'm close to it and I'm not giving the furnace room to make noise with the audio file or the audio wavelength just being so up and close and personal with how I'm talking, it's not gonna come through. And that's things people have to understand. Like you can't have audio that's good if the mic's far away. That's number one. I don't know why people don't get that. Like if it's a Blue Yeti, people are doing this thing where they're getting Blue Yetis, which I don't have a problem with Blue microphones. They're a good microphone company, but a Blue Yeti is honestly made with the intention of recording instruments. I think. I don't know if you'd know that, but like to a certain
I'm not sure.
To a certain extent, I don't really think it's good for talking and voiceovers. Like personally,
it's been ages since I've heard someone streaming on YouTube using a Blue Yeti. So
I think it's because it was so popular earlier, and then like recently people have realized it just doesn't do good for voiceovers or YouTube. Like I'm trying to think of an example. I like Graham Stephan, but he uses a Blue Yeti for his Graham Stephan show when he's talking to people sometimes, and it's really loud when he gets close to the microphone, and that's because it's not meant to be talked into.
It's
meant to be played into relatively far away with instruments. I think that's the vibe I get from it. There's a thing to be said about like this Audio-Technica AT2020. When I looked into the microphone, there was much more of a sentiment around like this is meant to be talked into a little bit more than the Blue Yeti. It doesn't pick up things that are farther away, and the reason that I did that was because my furnace is so annoying at the time that I was like, well,
I've never heard it. I've never heard it in your video, so that's incredible that you've said you have a furnace there.
Yeah, I have a furnace / air conditioning unit right there that is so incredibly loud. I've made the joke about it. The only time you really hear it is in vlogs when I mention it casually. But I try to noise gate in vlogs a lot, and people don't notice that maybe. I don't do it when it's outside because that's just unnatural.
Yeah.
Because if there's...
It makes it sound tinny, and I don't know what you mean about the noise gate, but what do you use for the noise suppression? Do you use Audacity?
I use Audacity, yeah.
It's incredible.
And the key thing there that I learned is it's just a simple trick for anyone who's trying to do this. Take a second before and after you record and just let it sit there for 20 seconds. Like silence, dead silence when you hit record. Don't move, just chill. And what you can do is you can take that 20 seconds of audio, and that will give the Audacity file the most accurate representation of what the background sounds like. So then the noise reduction doesn't get rid of anything that's not the background noise. Now, it will have some overlaps with your breaths because breaths are similar to background noise, but when you do that and you do, I think, frequency smoothing to max, that was like a key thing. Those two things I learned, key things during the second round of YouTube that I'm doing. that were like insane and making the background noise not be there. Or if the background noise was there, it was able to be reduced just mostly out of the way, and then a little background music would mask everything else. Yeah.
I've noticed that like the boom mics actually sound quite well when you don't have sound in the background. Like Matt Diavella uses one on top, but it's quite expensive. It's one of those
$800. It's great.
Yeah, but I bet he does a bit of tweaking on his softwares as well to get them the maximum out of it. But,
yeah, you can't really do anything out of the box. I think that's something I definitely learned early on.
Yeah,
everything out of the box is not. It's not exactly what you think it is. He's got great quality all around, though. I agree, and I think audio is definitely. I think I want to make a video on like how to start a podcast, how to have good audio, all those sort of things. I'm not quite there filmmaking wise, so I won't make a filmmaking video. I might make a video on how I make my videos, though.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah,
I think hardware is quite important as well. Like you can't be tweaking a smartphone microphone the way that you tweak a normal microphone. Like you have to really learn and test and keep testing each time you use your microphone audio on the videos.
Yeah, it's hard. I know that for some people, though, like I said, with people being on the podcast and having good quality, I actually have asked people to have backup recordings of what's going on with their iPhone as a test. And one time, I ended up using it. Eric Moran, who I had like on a month ago, his mic, his audio technical mic, I'm forgetting the name of the cheaper version of this. It just didn't work. Like when he was recording, just straight up didn't work. And I was like, well, I'm glad I asked for the iPhone backup. Or actually, he might have suggested it, now that I think about it. But since then, I've asked people to do it. So it's always key to have backups too, which is something that Matt Diavella brings up. Most interviews he has, he's got like 2 backups of audio.
Yeah, but it's never gone wrong. He always triple checked, so it's not a big problem.
Yeah, it's funny how
I really like how he does things.
Yeah, he's the best. I think a good thing to talk about regarding testing things out would be, you've been reading a lot recently, as we talked about beforehand, and rediscovering books. You've rediscovered books, which is an interesting concept because we're in 2020, and books, I feel like for a little bit recently have just been put on the back burner.
Yeah, with all these social platforms, Netflix and everything, it's more enjoyable to do Netflix and other things. But yeah, the books are quite amazing. And when I was little, I was really forced into reading, and it wasn't a good experience because first I started reading books that I didn't want, and in school they made me read the same books that the other kids read. So I don't know, it didn't feel unique to what my journey was. And I think that pushed me very deep into the no reading category, we should say. And recently, well, last year, I started getting into books because my dad gave me a few self-improvement books like How to Win Friends and Influence People. That book is amazing. Have you read that one?
I haven't, but every single person that's read it says it's golden.
It is amazing. Like I can't even tell you because you just have to sit down and read. It's incredible. And since then, I've been like discovering new books such as the Marcus Aurelius Meditations. It's actually his journal, so it wasn't really meant to be a book. It was just his thoughts, and he writes down what he thinks, what about his society, what's going on in his life. And it's a really amazing book because it talks about Stoicism. Do you know what Stoicism is?
Yeah.
Like being in control with your own thoughts and not letting external things affect what your mind and your body, they talk about an external thing. So your mind has to be the only internal thing. So nothing external can be affected what's in here. Mm-hmm. I don't know if if you read it, you'll know what I'm trying to say, because it's very difficult to explain.
Yeah.
Very old book. But like, for example, if you put your happiness towards external things such as maybe your job, like, okay, you love your job and you love doing it, but if you put all your happiness towards that, if you lose that job, what will happen? You'll feel bad. And this is what they're trying to say. Like, well, it's a very old book, but it still plays a big role in today's society. Like, nothing can be, everything changes. So everything in here has to stay the same, mentally grounded.
That makes sense.
It's very difficult to explain, but if you read it, you understand what I'm trying to say.
I think what you're trying to get at is, like, there's a lot of external factors in the world, and what you need to do is focus on yourself and keep things in your head always in a positive frame of mind. You get to be happy with yourself as a person, those sort of things, because external forces change all the time. And we probably find this issue to be even harder now than when it was made, right? Because the variables of things that you can be happy about that are external, I mean, they've gone through the roof, even with, not even just with your job. Like, before it was probably your job, you know, you have family, those sort of things, people you know, relationships you have. Now you have so many different aspects. You know, you have physical things, you have software that's on those physical things that make you happy, like with social media. You have the interactions on that social media that make you happy, like the likes, the dopamine hits you get all the time. You have even just how often somebody texts you could be an external factor to how much you're happy.
Dopamine and everything.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I mean, I think stoicism is really hard to attain right now, but it's something we all should strive for, because as we saw very recently with everything crazy going on, how many external factors can really change in a second, you know? Like, I'm sure it's easier said than done right now. Be like, oh yeah, stay stoic, because there's a lot of things that are changing that are really negatively affecting people's lives. But it is a good concept. So the name of that was from Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. Yeah. Things
you can't control, you shouldn't, like, you can't control anything. You can't have status, money, nothing, none of that will gain you control. So the only thing that you can control is your own mind. That's what Stoicism is trying to, Seneca said that. That's the only thing that you have to keep in mind. The only thing that you can control are your own thoughts, and that's it.
That makes sense. I think it's interesting, though, to see, we talked about this beforehand. You ended up feeling like your script writing and the way that you are able to express yourself has gotten better the more you've read. Isn't that? I think that's pretty cool. Yeah.
But reading has, I don't know, maybe it's just because I enjoy writing more just because of reading, or maybe because it's really, really helped maybe neuro connections. And, well, it is true, like, neuro connections happen when you read, and I haven't been training that reading maybe muscle in the brain. So with that has helped me a lot, writing and scripting these videos, because I do journal, like, what happened in my day, and it helps get all the thoughts out. So with reading, scripting has really helped combine new words and ways of thinking. I think that's the way to put it.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. And I think you're also finding something that I'm finding too, through maybe all the videos I've watched of these people who have such purpose and drive. But I also do want to get back into reading myself personally before I talk about this.
You should.
I got to do it. I keep putting it off. And I know even just general reading is something that most people don't do now, with audiobooks and the adaptation of that. It's, I mean, people aren't going to read if they have the choice.
Of course, audiobooks are good when you're driving and, you know, in the gym and stuff, but reading is something incredible, because it takes you somewhere. Thousands of years ago, and it's like he's speaking to you, like Marcus was speaking to me. It's incredible how words can take you to another dimension. It's incredible.
And it's the only thing you can be doing when you're doing it. So for audiobooks,
Yeah.
you're not fully immersed.
That's a great point. Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, try doing something else besides mild listening to instrumental music in the background while you're reading a book. There is nothing. You really can't. Like if you're reading, you're reading. If there's things that are distracting you, you're being distracted. You're not. I mean, you take your eyes off the page, it's done. It's not a thing. But audiobooks, you can do anything while listening to it.
I never thought of that. That's a good point. Yeah. You're in there. You're not. Your attention is just there. It's nothing else. Yeah.
And I'm sure there's got to be a correlation between people reading more and their attention spans being better. Want to hear a fun fact regarding how often people switch tasks in the workplace?
Oh.
Thomas Frank and his co-host on the College Info Geek podcast a couple weeks ago, they were reading a book. I'm forgetting what the name of the book was called. It's a productivity book, and maybe I'll remember it while I'm talking about it. But they talk about how they did a study in an office setting about how often people were switching tasks on their computer. They put a recording software, figured out how often they were switching tasks. Guess how long it was before they would switch task?
I'm not sure. I bet very short space.
It's probably shorter than anyone would think. It's like 44 seconds.
Oh,
I know.
Jesus.
I know.
44 seconds.
Like between.
And that is 2020 or.
Yeah, it was 2019, I think, or 2018. Yeah.
I bet it's less now.
I mean, just like think about that conceptually. So when you're reading a book, you're reading that thing for nonstop amount of time. And I'm guessing about 50 years ago, people would just read, nonstop for a long period of time. Now, phone notifications happen. A lot of things are happening in the world that people let distract themselves. People weren't as easily distracted before because they didn't have constant things hitting them. But when you hear things like that stat, that is actually crazy. Between them getting notifications from their email, all that kind of stuff, they would just switch what they were doing.
You can't get anything done.
No, because like how long it takes for you to recover after you're switching tasks and refocus. It's something ridiculous. I think the number's like 28 minutes, or it's like 25 minutes for things that were external, and then 28 minutes for things that you chose to switch.
Wow.
So you losing basically what the book told people was people could work 3 hours a day and be done.
Yeah.
Because of how often they were getting task switched.
If they focused all their attention, maybe 20 minutes towards one thing and then 20, that would completely change their life, I think. Like, how could you... Well, I bet I do this as well, but it's incredible. It's 44 seconds.
Yeah, it was in the 40s, 44 or 48, but it was ridiculous.
Incredible.
Like, could you imagine a world... just a world representation of that? Like, think about that happening in a sporting event or anything like that, or like on a live broadcast. Imagine if you or I, just every 44 seconds, would just be completely distracted from what we were doing and switching to do something else instead of having this conversation. Every minute.
Wow.
That's insane.
Yeah, that tells something about like what's going on now with smartphones and technology. All these sounds, lights, notification this where, this, that where, it's like they made smartphones to be something quick and precise, but the applications on it are not meant to do that. They're meant to keep you on there. Like, it's scary.
It's anything but short term. I think even when I wake up, because I wake up early, and I'm having this issue recently that I've noticed. I have a lot of things to do for my days. Just because I'm trying to backlog a bunch of content before I go back to school, so I can have like one less video a week or something like that, so I can have a little less on my plate. At least all my formal videos for the fall, hopefully. If not, some podcasts. I'm finding myself just really struggling to finish everything before the end of the day and getting like a normal amount of sleep. It's hard, even for me, who's all productivity this, productivity that, who blocks schedules, because something is just happening with this phone or with my computer that things just
pop up
and then you're like, oh, I need to do this too, or oh, that was cool. Oh, Instagram 4 minutes. Dang it, I lost. And like throughout the day, that stuff adds up.
Yeah, that happens to me. Yesterday, I normally write my scripts during the morning because that's when least distractions happen, and I don't know, I feel quite creative in the morning. So I woke up and I accidentally went on my phone, and I already saw a text message from a friend. I was like, dang it, I need to do that now. And then I haven't even done the script. So you have to be careful what you see and do, really.
Yeah,
you won't
hard.
get anything done.
Yeah, because even in those situations when you have a friend that's reaching out to you, sometimes you get into those text strings, those conversations where you're having a really good conversation, you're going back and forth. Then you got to realize at some point, though, it'd be better to have that in person and very present in the moment. And it's better to probably just be like, hey, I'd like to catch up with you sometime. Let's go hang out for a couple hours somewhere. Yeah. And that's probably better use of your time. Like doing that whenever you have, because for me, I like schedule time when I'm like supposed to have downtime, but I keep taking away from the downtime and just putting it into
more stuff. Yeah.
It's not good.
Balance. You have to balance.
Yeah. And these people that are driven that you're reading about and that we're watching on YouTube, I think it's really interesting how these driven people want to help people, from what I can tell. And then two, it seems that people who are driven by meaning succeed. Yeah. And then the others just don't. I don't know if people think about life in that sort of way, but there's a lot of people that are going through the motions regarding their work because they just need to get a paycheck. Yeah. And they're just these people, like Matt D'Avella, Ali Abdaal. Ali Abdaal is probably the best example in my personal opinion. I mean, that man's driven to save lives and make a bunch of different content for people to help them. Yeah. They are so successful in what they do because they're just so driven to make it happen. And they're so passionate about what they're doing. I'm sure if Matt D'Avella couldn't care less about the creative process, he would never have made it anywhere in the filmmaking industry or in the video editing freelance area where he was for a while, or on YouTube. But it's interesting when we read these books, when we watch these people, there is such a correlation between drive and their success and those people that are just going through the motions that end up not being happy with what ends up happening with their life.
Yeah, I think meaning, and these YouTubers, they have meaning. I don't know what is, but maybe one is creating, changing people's lives and helping. That's one of them, but I think they have multiple because there's not one meaning in life. You have to have various, to keep on track. And meaning or purpose, because I think everyone has a purpose and should have, because someone without meaning is unhappy, and that is scientifically proven. If you are on this earth without meaning and you're all day laying on the couch and not doing anything to better yourself or get to the next level, you're not going to be happy. So these YouTubers are getting to the next step because every single day, I think, they are woken up by that meaning. Because haven't you felt that time when you never wanted to wake up because you didn't feel like that day was going to be a good one? Well, you have to try and find that thing that springs you out of the bed and makes you, okay, this day I'm going to tackle it because this is what I want to do. Do you get that feeling sometimes that you never want to, or have you got that feeling that you had maybe an important event and you woke up before the alarm went off? That's happened to me, and it's an incredible feeling.
Yeah, I think for me, it's relatively hard to say whether it's hard to wake up in the morning sometimes just because it's 5. But this morning, before we got on the podcast, I woke up before my alarm because I knew I was going to have a podcast guest on and I was excited for it, right? So I definitely get that feeling relatively often when I have to make a video and I'm really passionate about the video topic, or I don't know why. I don't know if this happens to you. Sometimes I'm just not feeling myself regarding like recording. There'll be days where I'm just like, I mean, I'm not going to be as chipper as usual.
happens.
I don't know how passionate I am about recording this. I will switch it with a non camera presence
Productive.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It happens to me, and I think it happens to everyone. Like that desire to create is doesn't. I think I read it somewhere. Like motivation is a myth.
Ali
It's a
Abdul
book,
made
I
a video
think.
about that like a
Yeah,
week ago.
he did, didn't he?
Mm.
Yeah, and I think when you're in the process, it's where you're happiest. Like the process has to mean something to you because the end result, if you're going for the end result, you're never going to get there. The process has to be like desirable and enjoyable. I bet you experience this when creating videos or maybe studying for your next exam. Like I know it's dreadful, but when you're doing it, those dopamine hits, the excitement, like okay, I'm gonna smash this. This is gonna be great.
I did.
Does that happen?
I get that all the time. I get that recently a lot when I made the shift into having B-roll and telling a story in my videos. Editing went from dreadful to fun because the process got fun, because I enjoyed the script writing process of, okay, let's see how I can make this idea a story to tell people. And before, it was just cutting a roll. I mean, honestly, it was just a list of bullet points that I was telling people and cutting a roll. And then the second I switched into the creative side of video and storytelling, my editing became fun. And it would take a similar amount of time for me to have B-roll and edit that stuff in than editing A-roll, because I was so bored during editing my old videos that I'd have music on in the background. I'd be like, oh my God, I just need to do this. I would procrastinate for like 4 or 5 days sometimes on when I had planned to edit the videos. And that's why I knew I needed to make a change, because I wasn't enjoying part of the process. And I'm like, if you're not enjoying part of the YouTube process and you're only going for making 3
the
videos
money
a week,
or the money or whatever, you're not gonna make it. Like that's one of the videos I'm gonna be putting out about the process and how to get the right reward system while doing it. Because imagine you're training to get massive biceps and you just want to have the biceps because someone else has it. You're not going to get there because you're going to be dreading every single day you're going to the gym. So if you enjoy going to the gym, meeting the people and really lifting up those weights, every single day you're going to wake up, okay, and today I'm going to maybe lift 20 or 30, and every single day you're going to keep going and going. And then when you're there with the biceps, you're going to be like, oh, I made it. That was cool. And that's it. Like, it's the realization like, oh, I made it, but I enjoyed the process. That's the important bit.
Yeah, I agree on that one. I think there's something to be said. That's a very good example for physical things. That happens a lot. When people work out, that's like a big motivation issue that a lot of people have. For me personally, I've always been very motivated to stay in shape and to run. And I had this weird period of time in my life where I was just like addicted to the pain that happens when I would go really hard in a workout. Like when I was enjoying that for the process, best believe I would get out the door and be like, running is great. But then there's times when I'm injured, and I got things like my Achilles bothering me. I got things like my knee bothering me. I got a chronic knee problem. That's never going to go away. But when I go out there and everything's feeling good, I'm enjoying the process, and running is a fun thing. But when I'm going out the door and my body doesn't feel good and I have some injuries that I'm dealing with that are lingering, it's definitely a perfect example of the whole like enjoying the process versus not will make you want to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or even when it's hot out, man. Like we were talking about earlier. I mean, it's gonna be 90 today. Good Lord, it's 75 at 5 in the morning.
How much is that in Celsius?
That's 16?
20.
16.
16. Oh, that's quite low. That's cold.
Wait, no. All right. See, this is my test. This is my test to see how. It's probably like 20. I don't know. Like but we have really bad humidity here.
Yeah.
That's the issue. So it's like 75 degrees, but it's muggy. And
the stickiness and everything.
Yeah. That ain't it. No.
So the process is the most important bit. And that's why, like, the meaning and the process has to be attached. So if you have meaning to strive for the next level or the next goal, the process always has to be there. So whoever's watching, keep the process in mind.
Keep it in mind. I think that's really good because going into this next topic that we were planning on talking about, there's something to be said about being in the moment. And when you have a process that you're really enjoying, you're going to be in that moment more. And I think when we're able to have those things that we're able to be in the moment for, like we were talking about with reading, like that's the only thing you're doing in the moment. That'll help you wean yourself off a little bit from like dopamine hits, which is different. Like happiness from being in the moment of editing or something like that. Like for me, we were just talking about that 40-something
seconds, yeah.
task switching. I have been editing videos recently and just noticed that I look up at the clock and it's 40 minutes later and I'm like, I beat the numbers. I am different than the average office work person. That is great. So when I find though, when I'm doing that, I am in such a state of flow, which I love the flow state. It's such a cool concept.
Flow.
And that's really good to, I feel like that in a way, that's its own sort of deep detox of dopamine because it's, sure, are you being happy? Yeah, but like people talk about reading and that kind of stuff when they do dopamine detoxes. I feel like if you're fully enthralled in a task where you're not being interrupted by things that give you dopamine hits, that's probably something similar.
Yeah. I think it's so healthy to be fully focused on one task. Maybe, of course, you can have some music in the background, but having that attention on one certain thing, I think it takes us back to the dinosaur age when you was focused on killing the animal, or
that was it, yeah.
Fully concentrated on one thing. And this is what we're losing in today's age, that we're noises this way, friends that way, all the social workings, everything's going, to shambles. So like being focused on what you just said about the flow, it's incredible how you're just writing and suddenly someone comes into your room, oh, it's 5 o'clock and you have to be there, and you're like, 3 hours just gone by. Being in the flow is, if you felt being in it, it's really incredible. And I've had it playing football. Like it normally happens on high intensive activities, like where you get a lot of adrenaline. And I was so focused that I was unstoppable, but it was only 20 seconds. So these high intensive works only give you a short flow rate, but the boring script, well, not boring, I quite enjoy them, but the script writing or reading, they're more less intensive, but you get a longer flow rate. So the more difficult the activity, shorter the flow. The longer the activity, the longer the more boring. It's not
less
boring,
intense
but
the activity. Yeah, the longer.
The longer flow. That's what I think, and what I've experienced.
I agree. I think mental things in general take longer time than physical activities. I mean, even for me, actually, even for running a marathon, the longest, if you're in really good shape and you're somehow in the flow of running a marathon, it's going to be under 3 hours. So, like, there's got a physical limit to it. But when you have things that are in a mental state, you can keep going a lot of the time. And there's not some sort of physical limitation, because you could be so in the flow of writing scripts, you can write another one and another one and another one.
Yeah.
But if the race is over, it's over. Like, you got to just finish. If the game's over, if you score a game-winning penalty kick, it's over.
Yeah.
So I think there's something to be said about being in the moment of those long-term tasks, because I don't know about you, but starting YouTube recently, and as my comments have gotten larger and as my analytics have changed, I'm getting constant dopamine hits. I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. Like every single day. I mean, I refresh my YouTube Studio app on my phone and it's just dopamine hit, because a new comment comes out. Or like yesterday, I think I had, 58 hours of watch time, because my podcast with Drew Rice did really well. Wow. And every time I refreshed it, it would go up like an hour in watch time, whatever, on that video. And I was just like, oh my God, look at this. And then my brain's being just trained to love it, to crave it.
Yeah, it's dangerous. It's dangerous.
And I'm like, oh man, I woke up and I see I gained some new subs. I'm like, ooh, dopamine hit, and then
and then you go back down.
and then you go back down. You're like, but
Yeah.
but where's the next comment? And it's really hard because my expectations have like 4x'd, probably gone up 4 times since 3 weeks ago. Because I was crazy. I was being like, oh my god, it's crazy. I have like 200 comments a video now, and then that happened easily on my Sunday's video, but it didn't hit 300, and I was like, what?
Yeah. So the expectation like goes up, and then when you're not there, you don't feel as, you know.
I had a very good string of videos. I had a bunch. I had the caffeine video.
And the Notion video.
And the Notion video.
Great.
The Notion videos, yeah. Sorry, the Notion video did great. But before that, I even had the feeling, or the secret to waking up early, the foolproof guide to waking up early. That video was the number 1, and I was like insanely happy with how many views it had for how early it was, right? And then this podcast with Drew Rice came out, and I'm like, 1, I really like the podcast. That was fun. But 2, like it says 9th out of 10th on views, right? For how early it is in the process. And then I'm like, dang it. But then I realized when I look at it, that was more than the feeling of the Foolproof Guide to Waking Up Early video that far in, because I've just been steadily improving. So I'm like, what are you doing only getting like 200 views in the first day? That's barely anything. But then I look and I'm like, oh, wait a second. You were happy with that like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. So the expectation goes up, but like the standards sometimes don't get higher, and then you feel bad, don't you?
Exactly. Like there's something to be said about, like I had 4 or 5 weeks, or I guess that's 4 weeks in a row of my formal videos being a number 1 when they dropped. And then this last week it was 3rd out of 10. And I was like, that's weird. Like, where's my number 1? I thought my audience is getting bigger. But sometimes things just don't hit the same way. Yeah. And you got to be okay with that. And that's something that we're trying to learn probably with making these videos. And like you said, finding a good reward system for these things is like, I can't base it off of my analytics.
You have to be careful with dopamine analytics and other you know, social platforms, because like all these dopamine hits are fake rewards, aren't they? Like if you ran a marathon, you would get a good feeling of reward, but getting these fake social media likes or next viewer or subscriber, it's all fake, and that has really worsened my creativity when I use my phone in the morning. Like it's incredible how when I open up my phone to see a text message saying, hey, are you coming to the beach today or whatever? And I'm like, no, I need to work on my YouTube video. And then I'm thinking in the background, oh, it would have been great to go to the beach. Like all these little dopamine hits, and they kill your creativity.
A quick note on the wording you used when you told your friend I needed to work on the script. Something that I found that's really useful for me personally, as somebody who has like gotten rid of drinking or eating certain things in their life. Don't use the phrasing, I need to. Do the phrasing, I want to.
I want to. Yeah, true.
Yeah, because I've pretty much like cut alcohol in my life, even like throughout college, like not really big drinker. And then like when it became legal to be able to drink, like I was like, whatever, I don't really care. And then people are like, you want something? I was like, no, I'm good. I'm all right. Like I don't want it. I don't want it.
I don't want, because it's personal. It's you. It's not some external factor changing you. I understand. That's good.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And trust me, you get way less social pressure when you hit them with the I don't want it, rather than the I can't. Saying I can't, then like, yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. It's like I don't want that dessert. Why not? I don't want cheesecake. Just hit them with that. It's like, well, yeah. They're not gonna be like, yes, you do. Yes, you want it. But if you say, I can't have it, I'm on a diet, they'll be like, oh, come on.
That's happened to me a lot with because I've gone vegan for like 3 months.
Oh, good for you. That's cool.
I'm trying out some new things, and I've said I can't, and I've got that once, and then like a month later, I started thinking, well, I don't want to really. I don't want to. And then they stopped talking. They said, okay, do you, that's you. And it's incredible how one word changes everything.
Yeah, it's a psychological thing right there. I mean, I don't want to eat meat. I don't want to have animal product. Much different than hearing, I can't, I'm vegan.
Can't. Yeah, because it's external, isn't it? The can't.
Yeah, and they'll also try to manipulate that phrasing because you can't. Can't is a very subjective thing, because the word can't, unless it's illegal, is not set in stone. Like, I mean, even if it is illegal, you can still do it. Like, can't unless you're physically unable to do something. Like, unless you're literally physically have an issue. Like, I personally can't tell the difference between certain colors. That is not a subjective statement. But when you say, I can't eat this thing, that is extremely subjective because you literally can just put it in your mouth.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
That's cool. Thanks for that tip.
Yeah.
I should be using that more. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely for anyone watching, if you have something you're trying to stick to, you never should say I can't. Just say I don't want it. It's also a subliminal thing for yourself, because if you say I don't want it enough, you'll convince yourself that's the case. Like, I just straight up have, there's been times where I've convinced myself I don't want dessert, even though I definitely did. I quit dessert for 3 months last year. Just, I don't know why.
Good experience.
Yeah, I mean, like, I slimmed down a bit, even though I'm really slim already. It was weird. Like, I ended up losing like some extra 4 or 5 pounds I didn't know I had.
Wow.
And I only weigh like 155 pounds, and I'm 6 foot, so I'm pretty light.
Pounds? I don't know. I'm always in kilos.
Well,
so
if I could do math, I would help you out there. But that means I weigh like, I don't know, 70 kilos, 75 kilos, 75 kilos. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So I'm pretty light for 6 foot. Yeah, and I think there's something to be said about, we're getting all these dopamine hits, and Sam and I have talked before about how it just makes you feel not great in some situations. Like, give your example you gave to me a little bit ago about
Well, I think it was yesterday or the day before that I had an unproductive day. So basically, it would be maybe eating junk food and watching Netflix basically most of the day, and I didn't do anything that really satisfied me. And later on at night, I went out to eat with my parents, and it didn't feel very pleasant. It was like when we was in a conversation, I wasn't paying attention enough, and the feel that I got from that meal was quite unpleasant, because all these dopamine hits that I got during the day was exceeding the amount of being with my parents that night. So it felt awful and boring to be there. And I don't know if you felt that.
Yeah, I have before. I think there's something to be said too from a perspective of somebody who is very into being productive and those sort of things. You're also probably kind of upset with yourself. I don't know if you've ever had that feeling too. I get relatively upset with myself if I waste most of my day. And it's kind of a hard thing to battle, because you do need to find times to just relax and times to just be in the moment for no reason other than just relaxing.
Yeah, it could be productive to not be productive. So, but I don't know, it's something internal that you think, oh, I'm not doing anything today, and you feel bad, but sometimes you just have to take a break, I
get these questions a lot of the times with my block schedule and stuff, like, how do I plan for sporadic things with my friends? And then I'm like, well, do the most important things you can before your friends are probably awake, and on top of that, like, probably before noon, because if they ask you to do something before noon, it's probably not worth your time, just to be honest, unless they ask you multiple days before, like, let's get breakfast sometime, like, all right, that's fine. But when it comes to those things of like planning sporadic things with your friends, it's okay if those less important tasks don't get done and you end up being productive socially. Like, there's something to be said about you wasted your day on Netflix. That's not the same thing as you getting asked by your friends to hang out.
Of course, yeah. I think that's a good point on connecting and being with your friends is quite productive. Well, it depends what you do, but most of the time it's productive to get out there, and we are social creatures, aren't we? So
It's productive up here, at least. It's productive for your development.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I think that's a good segue into the last thing, which is the beer thing, my favorite thing to talk about, because you guys have a pretty meh situation right now and where you're from, because you are a very tourist driven economy. Am I correct?
90% or something like that.
What the heck?
90%. Yeah, it's scary. So basically, we get, I don't know, 1 million tourists, like, per average. So it's 12 million a year or 13 million a year to the Canary Islands. 1 million each month. And it's scary that we have no tourists here now. Like, the streets are empty and everything is shut down except the restaurants, local restaurants. But my parents, they work in, of course, touristic excursions and stuff like that. So we can't make money. We have to go into different parts of the economy here, like residents and other things. But it's so scary how everything's it's on a downfall here. But let's hope this summer it gets back up.
What percentage? Wait, what's the population of the
Canary Islands? I'm actually not sure. I think it's I'm not sure. Maybe Tenerife is 1 million or 1.5, but I'm not sure because it's changed over the years, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. I'm just curious. I'm sure it's like I'm sure you have twice I'm sorry. I'm trying to think of like how many more tourists are in the place than you during the time period that they're there. That's just kind of weird to think about, you know.
It could be double. Yeah. So it's just so weird. Imagine your whole city, whatever, just left, like half just left. It's crazy.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do want to ask you what are the positives that you've personally had in your life because of it? Because I always try to end it on a positive note, at least as much as we can.
Well, the first thing, I started my YouTube channel. Did you start your YouTube channel during?
Yep.
Loads of people have started, and it's a time of self exploration, really, because when I was alone with my parents, we talked a lot. You know, we got to connect, and I think that's very important. Loads of people, like in relationships, they go to work, get back home, eat, watch Netflix and go to sleep, but they've had time to talk to each other and reflect, and that's what's happened with me. I've had time to think, make new friends, because we're going out now. Of course, they let us go out. But yeah, it's actually, I've seen it more as a positive. We don't know what's going to happen in the future because stuff might go down, but it's been very positive at the moment. And I've met loads of people, so it's great. It's very good.
I totally agree. I think there's something to be said about the level of positivity that you're acknowledging, because there are really not so great things happening.
Yeah.
But the things that we can control in our own households and with our own friend groups and with the people that we know and we're trying to meet and stuff, those are the things that really affect us more maybe than what the powers that be try to prevent us from doing. You know, like, they can't prevent us from having these meaningful conversations with each other.
Yeah.
They can't prevent us from having these meaningful conversations with family members, with friends, exploring ourselves. Like, those are the kind of things that you can do right now if you can't do anything else. And I know that's easier said than done. I know a lot of people are in spots where that may be hard to do, but I encourage everyone, as things get better, and, you know, it's possible that things may slow down again. I guess that's the phrasing I'll use, because things are getting quicker around my neck of the woods. And there are some situations, though, where they're starting to act like they might want to get it to slow down, because flu season's in the winter, and summer seems to be not preventing it as much as people thought it would regarding the heat. because cases keep going up. I don't know if you've heard anything about like stuff in the U.S., but like cases are cases are going up. But luckily, though, mortality is still low. And like I heard an analogy that was really good from a friend, and they said this: there were just as many stars in the sky before we had a telescope.
Sure.
Like there may have already been all this many people who have had said thing, said issue, but we're just testing where so now we see it.
Yeah.
Like, so, I mean, and if more people aren't passing away, then.
Yeah, and I don't want to get much into detail, but, you know, because it won't end this podcast, but, you know, data sometimes is not as reliable as they say. So you have to be careful with what you see and listen to on social media or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about it. I talked about it with Drew Rice 2 weeks ago, but like understanding statistics is important and not letting certain news outlets
get to your head.
Get inside your head with like statistics that may or may not be accurate.
Yeah. But anyway, intelligent people will, you know, question themselves, and the others will get anxious. So
yes, I agree. All right, with that being said, man, I want to give you the floor to end things out before we finish the show.
Okay, so if you're interested in self-exploration, videos on achieving mental clarity, like productivity, as Demetri does, as well as some film photography type videos to improve your YouTube channel, well, my link's going to be in the description. So if you're interested in that, make sure to check me out. Thank you, Demetri.
Make sure you guys go do that. The podcast's over. And with that being said, I will see you guys in the next one.